Good morning, I'm Michael from Monster Gaming, and if you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. So after battling a rather uncommon cold, I am doing my video for Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer number 10. And I tell you now, it's the first one that I've been really disappointed with, but I'll get to that as I go through. So it comes with these funny little metal dice. I'm not keen on them. They're smaller than the normal ones, and I don't think they roll as nice. I don't think they feel as nice, if I'm honest. I think I prefer the plastic ones that we've had, and the glow dice from a couple of issues ago are probably now my all-time favourite dice because they roll so nicely. So here is Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer number 10. So if we open it up and have a quick look at the contents. So we have movement, part 2, some role-playing tips, and a very, very good piece on equipment, an all right bit on languages, a couple more backgrounds, the Swords Mountains, Order of the Gauntlet, which is a faction in the Forgotten Realms, and Deadknock Mine Part 2, which is really disappointing. So first up, we have a piece on movement. So this is part 2. It was previously had the first part covered in one of the earlier ones. It's got a very nice description of swimming, climbing, crawling, how your movement works and how you might want to pose extra additional checks if you're the dungeon master when trying to do bits and bobs. But I quite like this piece. Here we have a piece on jumping. And I guess I'd always glossed over it in the player's handbook. But again, because it's broken down weekly, because it's in bite-sized chunks, I feel like this book makes everything really easier to take in. So this talks about how your character's strength determines how far they can jump. And it's explained incredibly nicely. And then down here we have a piece where it explains the high jump and how a character's strength modifier determines how high they can jump. So never from a running and a starting jump. That never really occurred to me, but I thought again laid out very nicely. Here's some very basic tips on how to role play NPCs, how to bring them to life. There's nothing really special here, but it does include the top tip of don't just because you love your NPC character doesn't mean your players are going to. But I did like this bit here. Equipment part 2. Part 1 was very good. Part 2 is as well. It just talks about, you can use your equipment for loads of different things. And then here it talks about kind of like your standard staple items that you might take in. But I really like here, it's got loads and loads of different ideas that you could use them for. I quite particularly like little bag of sand. Obviously, he talks about Indiana Jones style and tracking invisible, or trying to sell it as pixie dust to the gullible. It really made me chuckle, a lot of these. And then on the other page, we have really detailed pictorial diagrams for what is in the Entertainers pack, the Dungeoneers pack, and the Diplomats pack. Very, very well laid out, and equipment part 1 was very, very well done as well in one of the earlier ones. Languages, however, it's just the bare bones. Talks about your species, determines your languages, maybe your backgrounds, give you a couple of little bit extras, little pictorial diagram of the runes and a bit of Elvish, nothing that we've kind of not seen before. And here it just talks about the power of words and languages and the most basic bit on secret languages. But I guess this is just an introduction. It doesn't include any of the uncommon sort of like more magical languages that you might find, though it does mention undercommon. Then we have the background for the sage. Sage benefits up here. Then we have the background for the charlatan, or the background charlatan, and then again the benefits here. And then we have our first lore section. So this is about the Swords Mountains. It just talks about how dangerous the area is, and I suppose again whereas a lot of the other ones I felt were quite comical, they had really good hints and tips and stuff. This issue, it just is very basic. Just talks a little bit about the lay of the land. I mean, some of the information in here has already been covered in some of the early issues as well. And then we have another faction. So this time it's the Order of the Gauntlet. They're just a nice group that want to go out and eliminate evil. Talks about who their notable members are. And then, and this is, I guess, why I've been so disappointed, this is Deadknock Mine Part 2. Now, Part 1, it didn't really end on a cliffhanger. It just ended on a, now you're going further into the mine. So they can follow the tracks down. They've defeated some goblins. They've met some dwarves. They have been asked to go and rid the rest of the mine of the goblins that are basically infesting it. So there's a bit of a time problem where time distorts and plays out differently inside Deadknock Mine. So the dwarves that had been mining down there think they've only been gone for about 12 days. In reality, they've been gone for a year. And the Part 1 was all set up, and none of it feels really relevant to this one. And I guess that's why this one I found this Part 2 disappointing. It's the first 2-part quest we've had, but it literally is a map, some locations, which I'll talk about in a second, and a 2-page spread on the baddie. And then the final page is just a repeat of the goblin stat that we've had previously. That's it. So I'll talk about the mine in detail, and then maybe you'll be as disappointed as I am. So Part 1 is up here, surface level. So they've got the mine cart down, and then they come to here where there's a bunch of sleeping goblins, 6 of them. Sneak past, surprise and kill, whatever it is you do with the goblins, that's the sleepy goblin encampment. But then 6, 7 and 8 are all the exact same thing. All they are is 4 goblins waiting to do an ambush. In the dark, surprise the characters, yet another combat. So no puzzles, no decent interactions, not even a chance for like a social interaction. Goblins ambush, fight and kill 4 goblins. I feel like it's a waste of these 3 rooms. They could have had a different monster in it. Maybe this room here with a locked door has got a monster hiding in it that the goblins didn't want to deal with. But still, there's not really any talk about the Feywild, which is being mined here, and the kind of like time problems, time distortion that the dwarves, who are still up the top, suffered. It's just basically get past 6 goblins, potentially deal with another 4 in each of these, final room. Now, the final room has got the cruel Nilbog, who it still makes me chuckle that I didn't realise it was goblin spelled backwards. He's lurking in there. And he's potentially murdering his own goblins just for fun, because that's the sort of nasty goblin creature that he is. There he is. But that's it. Either trick him, offer him a magic item, or defeat him. Get some pixie dust as a reward. Have to potentially deal with his possessing spirit, because actually that's a part of what these chaps do. That's it. Doesn't talk about what the dwarves were mining. It's real bare bones. And that's great, because you know what? I can flesh this out. I could come up with my own little clever devices and stuff like that. But part of the reason why I've liked these encounters so far is just the sheer ease of running them and how smart and detailed they were. And for a 2-parter, could have been fit in one. It's just the fact that the map, you would have had to include 2 maps, is probably what's stretched it out to 2. It's just really disappointing. Now, where I've not been very well, I've had this for over a week, and I've actually got and read number 11, and I can tell you now, the quest encounter in number 11 is fantastic. So they're not all like it. It's perhaps not, it's a dwindling decline. They're 10 issues in, now the quests are going to be lame. No, because I can tell you now, the next one is really good. It has an old kind of Hammer horror vibe to it. I really enjoyed it. But this, just don't feel like it needed to be spread out over two. So actually, other than the equipment in this one, I'd say this is the first one that's a bit of a fail. And again, like I said, the metal dice are not my cup of tea. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.